All right. So, hello and welcome to our webinar from the from the Science and Technology Library section. My name is Anna L. I am the information coordinator of the section. And today we have a webinar on AI in Science and Technology Libraries, Smarter Discovery, Better Services, and Responsible Use from Professor Roshan Ragel from the University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. And yes, before we start, I would like to invite you to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A section from Zoom so we can organize them better in order to address them as much as possible later in the Q&A session. And live translated captions are also available. The link on the instructions on how to activate that is now in the chat. Please use that function if you need to. And then these are other places to find the section. You can find our LinkedIn group, Facebook group, and YouTube channel through this link. So feel free to find us there. And now I will stop sharing my screen so we can start the webinar. Okay, I will pass this to you, Professor.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you everyone for joining me this day today to discuss about AI in libraries, and specifically I'm going to focus on science and technology related items and titled it as Smarter Discovery, Better Services and Responsible Use. So even if without AI, these aspects like discovery, being smarter, providing better services to the users, and also responsible use are items that we always talk about in any service. Libraries are not exceptions. So let's see how AI landscape is changing the libraries and how we can go about it. And I'll give you also a plan for those who are eager to implement something of this nature in your library if you are not already doing so, how we can go about it. So just to start the discussion, it's not just AI, but the data the library handles is keep increasing. And at the same time, if you look at numbers, for instance, I just took these numbers from the STM Open Access Data Dashboard from 2024. The number of open access, or the percentage of open access documents or publications are about 40%. Out of that particular year, about 4 million articles being published in a single year. So the numbers are really high now. And how do we manage them is a challenge. And at the same time, with artificial intelligence coming into picture, things are getting a bit more complex. And at the same time, there are opportunities. So they're going to discuss both angles. So why it's important we discuss about this at this time? Like I said, there is data if you look at everywhere, and I'll give some numbers later. They blow my mind. Such amount of data everywhere, and the users, including the users at libraries, have access to all this. But then the big challenge with generated data, particularly generated information, is that can we trust them? How do we trust them? So I see library networks or libraries as the place of trust. It used to be for centuries. Now in the age of AI, we should not give up, but take that challenge and make sure we become the trusted infrastructure, the trust infrastructure for all this data that's out there. And therefore, we should promote and implement instruments so that the trust remain and be the place where everyone can come and utilize for trust. Right? So there are different type of data that's making room or giving us the reason for going forward. More research data, more open content, And also there are needs for, because of things like generative AI, the users expect a better outcome of complex discoveries, right? So they want things to be connected soon. They want things to be summarized soon. Their content to be short and to the point, and a lot of other challenges that are coming into the picture. But then the data amount, like I said already, is keep on adding, keep on increasing at an exponential scale. So the user's expectation, like I said, is driven by, particularly now with AI, because we are talking about AI here. So in terms of the research growth or the article growth, this is again numbers coming from the same dashboard I mentioned earlier. Annual growth as per year-to-year growth as per the same dashboard is about 4%. So that if you take the last 10 years, we have the data has grown 50%, more than 50%. Right? So in practice, what does it mean? I just highlighted a few things, but to put them into context and make it clear. So what it means is there are more records to index if you take a library. And also, obviously, we manage a lot of metadata. So there's more and more metadata coming in. But at the same time, the more the data, more the documents and information, there's going to be a lot of noise, meaning there's going to be large volume of data, but the user who can consume is still the same. I mean, a particular user want to consume all this data, and therefore there is so much of noise. Who is responsible for making this noise disappear or make the relevant information become possible is, I think, the library is the center of such a discussion and such a practice. And like I mentioned earlier, nowadays researchers and users are not only demanding for more research articles and so on, but they demand synthesized, like summarized information quicker, particularly starting from generative AI era. So earlier, when you want to find information, we search, and the search results are in millions, and then the users are responsible for synthesizing and summarizing. But in the recent times with AI, that's changing. So now even search tools, most popular search tools, provide AI summaries of the search, and therefore it's becoming more and more demanding a demand or a requirement to summarize. But then when such summaries are going from a trusted party like a library, how do we go about it? What do we do about it? Can we still trust, and some challenges that come with it? I'll discuss them quickly as we progress. And we are also expecting fast results. So because again, with the AI support, any search gives quicker results, summarizing all that faster. Can we cope up with it, and what do we do about it in libraries? We have to have fast results. At the same time, we also have to make sure that they are trusted and they are verified and they are correct. Right. So what it really means is not AI is no longer going to be just a tool that we can just use, but it's going to be, it has to be, if you want to make libraries trusted and a trusted entity, and at the same time provide what the users want, the user experience that is needed, it has to be integrated. When I say it, AI has to be integrated into different parts of the library workflow, or calling it stack of capabilities. So starting from places like recommendation analytics, workflow automation, chat systems, different type of chat system. I'll come to that later as well. One for the user, one even for the library staff, and so on. And how do we extract and enrich metadata faster? And can we use this generic idea of retrieval augmented generation, or in short, we call RAG? I'll talk a little more about RAG later, because RAG is how generative AI become more reliable, or give response based on existing and authenticated or validated data. So that's something that everyone has to talk about, how RAG come into picture. And obviously, we can also use it now for semantic retrieval, meaning retrieval are no longer keyword based. Retrieval in the past used to be keyword based. We just put keywords and we look for resources based on keywords. but not anymore with AI. Now it's possible with some AI techniques to retrieve items which are semantically similar, not like just keyword similarity. Go beyond. So meaning like we are looking for same meaning documents and so on. So there's a lot of research happening in this area, and also I believe libraries can at different stages integrate these ideas to bring things into place, the requirement into place. I mentioned about RAG. Just a quick idea about RAG. The idea of RAG is that when you want to use when you want to do searching, like when you want to do searching in, let's say, in an AI space, you don't just say search the billions of documents that are out there and provide results or generate results from that, because billions of documents out there cannot be trusted. Not all of them are right. There are misinformation, bias, and whatnot. I'll discuss them later. But you don't do that. But what you do is you search within limited trusted resources, like for example, a journal archive or a library archive and so on. So you look for searching within a particular archive, and then you generate information or generate items based on the archive and within the archive only. So generation AI, such like generative AI generation, still generating documents and information still happens, but within a limited trusted resources. So that's what in simple term RAG is. There are technical details, but that's beyond the scope of this discussion. So this idea is applied in every other field. The fields like medicine, field like engineering, and fields like other places where when you want trusted or even research, when you want trusted data, trusted items to be generated, we follow what is known as the RAG model, so that what we generate is not just anything that's out there, but what we generate is not from anything that's out there, but from a trusted set of resources. The middle item here highlights the middle item in my three circles highlight the trusted resources, not everything. So we search trusted resources and we generate items from there, not from everywhere else. The idea of generation is common though. So let's see why we want to do all this, and why we had to take this more seriously and go forward. There are a number of studies. This is one I found from the Student Generative AI Survey, which was done by the UK entity HEPI. So they talk about the gap between students and the institutions. In fact, that's common everywhere. Even here, where I'm coming from, we see the whenever I go to a class or a group of students and ask, every student is using generative AI tools for retrieval, for finding information, for generating learning material and whatnot. But if you take institutions, it's not the case. So the study finds that institution, if you take, only 36% of the institutions are encouraging students to use them, and only about 38% have provided some tools. And therefore, there is a gap between what the students and the learners and the users are and how the institutions are. So libraries, like I said, is in the center of this discussion, because institutions who are responsible in an institution for resources, retrieval and whatnot is libraries. And therefore, libraries are center of this discussion and how we can catch up the gap or bridge the gap. But then at the same time, some libraries, some institutions, some places, things are moving. So this is another report from last year where they talk about the libraries that are implementing and exploring generative AI-based or AI-based solutions. So there's about 67 in 2025. Last year, about 67% of the libraries are exploring in a study that was done, which is a number increase compared to the previous year. Right. So but there are still institutions which are just at the evaluation stage, not really done any implementation, but only discussions and seeing the possibilities. Right. So there we had to go beyond evaluation and go beyond pilots, make it reality. I'll give a timeline on how it can be done and what needs to be done. So those are challenges. So, but at the same time, like I mentioned at the very beginning, there are a number of opportunities. So they are here. The opportunities, like I mentioned at the very beginning, briefly, is that search not anymore keyword based. Search is now semantic based, meaning based. So much we don't search for keywords. We don't just search for words, but we search for meanings. So, like for example, if I write a sentence and I can ask a tool now, an AI-based tool, to find similar sentences, articles, which matches the context, not just the keyword. So that has changed a lot. In fact, like there are a number of research tools that are built, including tools like Connected Papers and Research Rabbit and whatnot. They are built to search not anymore just the keywords, but the context or but the meaning. So that's changing a lot. So that's what is also known as smart discovery. And we can expand it to others, query expansion. We can expand it to connecting to links. Obviously, the results that has to come from a library setup is not like a generative AI tool. So it has to be beyond it, meaning it has to provide evidences, it has to provide links, it has to provide it has to enable cross-domain discoveries. All that has to happen. So these are all possible with the RAG model I mentioned, where we have the trust built by a database or a pool of resources which are verified and authentic. Right, so more on the evidence. It's also now possible with this sort of retrieval. In fact, like there are studies which was a bit old in the AI age, but it shows that the what do you call the importance or the accuracy of search is increasing by about like you can see 9 to 19%, which is about on average about 15%. So 15% increase in terms in the way how we receive information or retrieve information now with the use of context-based or embedding, like where we put a sentence meaning or semantics-based search. And there are different techniques. There's a technique called best match 25 and various other techniques that are used. We don't have to go into those details, but there are ways now possible so that we can do retrieval or dense retrieval, we call it, easier. And that adds a lot of value for retrieval because retrieval is no longer just keyword. Because if you're going to do retrieval keyword based, we also have a challenge, like I mentioned, because we are having so much of data and the keyword matching can give us so much of more for more documents and more resources, which we don't want. I mean, which we don't want the user to have because it's too much for a user. So what we had to do is we had to reduce it, and we had to also make it more accurate, right? So this sort of dense retrieval give us about 15% on average additional accuracy. So with that, we can add how we can use these ideas in a libraries is obviously we can bring more relevant results first. So when you are searching, obviously, or retrieval, more relevant results by doing this about 15% better. And also we can support natural language questions, right? So now it's not no longer anymore just based search, but it's not like very machine-like, but it's more like human, natural based, like because we can now generative AI and natural language processing have added a lot of or enable researchers and users to use natural language to communicate with generative AI and natural language processing. Those add a lot of value. So at the same time, it also supports, like I mentioned, cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary research, and answers can be grounded to the resources by using RAG, like I mentioned. So this is one, like just about the data and the impact. At the same time, we also have to think about the metadata, which libraries handle a lot. Right? I'll just highlight how metadata has increased in the last few years. So these numbers are coming from Crossref. So you can see the number of Crossref records stands at 180 million, and cited by links is about 2 billion. So these are numbers that are coming in. These numbers are which really large, and also same applies for DOIs. This is coming from DataCite, obviously the one who are running DOIs. So they are talking about not just the articles, not just the resources of that nature, but also about other information, other items like member organizations and people and others are also getting, other resources are also getting added, and the numbers are large and keep increasing. So the more reason for figuring out a proper way of managing this resource exploration, figuring out what resource to find and how to find. So, and also you can see the digital object identifiers, the number of digital DOIs increasing over years. Recent years, it's big numbers. This is from DataCite, like I said, those who are running DOI. And they have calculated that just last year alone, the number of records added is 36 million. The total records they have is about 100 million. You can see how exponentially growing the numbers that are getting added. So with this, it's again reasons for, there are reasons for us to be part of it, meaning libraries can now use all this information, but obviously we can't just collect and pass all this information to the users, but we'll have to properly organize, properly structure them, summarize, synthesize them, summarize them before providing it. So it can be used for providing better services like I have been mentioning. So let's just look at a quick video just as a break, and also to understand what sort of things AI is doing and can do in this time and age. Let me just play this video. Can you hear the sound? Yes? Okay, good.
No, don't. Oh, it's not there. No sound, yes.
Looks like there's
So
no
there's
sound.
no
Someone's
sound.
saying.
Yes.
Okay, let me just quickly double check this about that. Okay. And going again, this time to hear the sound.
I am a visionary. Illuminating galaxies to witness the birth of stars. And sharpening our understanding of extreme weather events. I am a helper, guiding the blind through a crowded world.
I was thinking about running to the store.
And giving voice to those who cannot speak.
Do not make me laugh.
I am a transformer, harnessing gravity to store renewable power. And paving the way towards unlimited clean energy for us all. I am a trainer, teaching robots to assist, to watch out for danger. help save lives. I am a healer, providing a new generation of cures and new levels of patient care.
Doctor, that I am allergic to penicillin. Is it still okay to take the medications?
Definitely. These antibiotics don't contain penicillin, so it's perfectly safe for you to take them.
I am a navigator, generating virtual scenarios to let us safely explore the real world and understand every decision. I even helped write the script. Breathe life into the words en muchos idiomas y escribí la música. I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA, deep learning, and brilliant minds everywhere.
As you saw in the video, so that's like AI talking or introducing itself. It says, I am AI, right? So, and then you can see the type of things it can do, right? So it's amazing the amount of things it can do. Generative AI is just part of it, but there's a lot more. It's just the tip of the iceberg where generative AI is, which has become so popular and through a certain number of tools. And it can do so many things. Like, for example, in the video, they were showing how it can do music. In fact, like the music for this whole video is composed or was composed by an AI tool called IVA. Although it was played by the London Symphony Orchestra, and but then it's all people and real instruments playing it, but it's all composed. And the notes were composed by AI. So AI can do a lot, but obviously with human being part of it. Right, so that's how we see the changes are, and libraries are no exception. And it's a good opportunity that I get to talk to you all and sharing my thoughts and the sharing few ideas about the possible direction to go forward. So if you take library, I'm going to now take some evidences to highlight how we can go about this, how we can enable libraries to go forward, and I'm going to take it through some examples. So in fact, like this is from the Journal of Academic Librarianship. They are talking about chatbots in academic libraries. So they are already there. Their count based on a survey is about 31 academic libraries are using chatbots. Those chatbots are used for giving not like generic chatbot type responses, but more RAG-based, like I said, evidence-based responses, which are obviously more better. And also the libraries can take responsibilities of such responses, not generated. So what it also means is that it has a lot of the generative AI and AI enhancement has a lot of impact in the resources or resource management and handling. Resources becoming challenging and more expensive. These tools can support. So there's again another study that sort of shows that the waiting time of a particular year, 2025, has reduced to about 410,000 or 500,000 hours. And also the processing, it has also freed the staff time by a significant number. So these are again coming from reports and studies. So and also it has improved workflows in large numbers. Per average delivery, it's about 10 hours. Now, and the new numbers for the interlibrary loans usually is double apparently. So I don't have this, I'm not experienced with these numbers, but I'm taking them from different reports. So this is coming from the OCLC report, and they talk about interlibrary loans, and now the numbers have come down by half, 20 hours to 10 hours because of all the improvement in the workflow, particularly with digital transformation and artificial intelligence and data coming into picture. So this transition means now that we are now can do things faster, but faster is not the point here, right? So if you want to just do faster, we can use not so reliable resources, not so reliable tools, and go ahead with it. But the point here is to do this reliably with trust. So fast, yes, it's needed because the users want fast. They want fast response time. They want reduced waiting time. They want automated processing, not to wait for people to come and do things, not to wait for people to take a lunch break and come and so on. But at the same time, they also want the trust and scalability. So they want trust, so grounded answers that are real, connected to real resources, traceable, meaning you should also be able to trace whatever we are providing to the source. We should be able to review and audit what's been happening, where it's coming from, and how it is done. And also it's appropriate. Like I mentioned, semantic-based retrieval is an example where you can calibrate the user need based on a description, not just keywords, based on context, based on sentences, paragraphs, and match it to the resources that we are providing. So that change is happening. So these are all good, but then what are the challenges? How do we go about it is what I'm going to discuss next. So I'm listing them under what I call risk. So obviously one of the risks that has reduced significantly over the last 4 years since the introduction of generative AI tools to general public is the hallucination. Hallucination, as you know, is things that are imagined, not real, not grounded on evidence. The numbers have come down. The benchmark now says the hallucination numbers are from 2 to 5%. It used to be about 40% when we started. So we have done quite a lot to bring it down so much, but still 2 to 5% is not zero, right? It's still a lot, right? So therefore we have to be careful. So low numbers doesn't mean it's safe. We still have to verify. We still have to find how to avoid this, right? So low error still means not so good, not good, because we should not be able to find the source if we have errors in the erroneous items. So we should provide error-free environment where the answer should be traced back to source. The citation must be explicit and should be displayed to users. And so we should also be able to confidently handle the item that we are handling has to be with confidence. Why so is because this is a trusted engagement where it's not just a tool giving answers, but there is an institutional infrastructure and responsibilities. And therefore that's important. So we should also provide things like checkpoints and also auditability. So these are items actually AI researchers and engineers are working hard and institutions are working hard to address. Particular things like accountability comes not just with the evidence, but also with how a result was obtained from the evidence. So the transition, the process of obtaining results from the evidence had to be transparent so that we can trust it easily, right? It's not just, okay, so these are the evidences, okay, this is my results, but say, okay, this is how I did it. So that's a whole process in AI research. It's called responsible or explainable use. And there are a lot of work happening there. And I believe institutions like libraries can use it to take it forward. Right, so there's a lot that can be used from the experience that are coming. More issues is bias. Bias is a serious problem. To start with, this is the common crawler. The common crawler, that is crawler meaning the tool that goes around the internet and finds data for AI to learn. So the common crawler, the numbers show that in 2026, about 40% of that common crawler data is in English. So which means those who are supporting other languages, particularly low resource languages in countries like where I'm coming from, the data that's out there is very small. And therefore, the results that these tools are going to generate based on the training that happened with the common crawler data, which is the global data, I'll tell you some numbers a little later, is going to be what we call biased, meaning it's going to give, for anybody's query, it's going to give the general answer. So things like Global South is going to be taken, it cannot be taken seriously because there is the representation of data is much lower. That happens due to various reasons. I just call it equity in general, but a lot of reasons. So just to give you some more idea about what this common crawler is doing, common crawler is a tool that goes around and take all the data that's out there. So as of now, the common crawler has crawled about 2 billion pages, 2 billion in data points. And in terms of data, it's 10, so you can see petabytes, right? So that's the next level to the terabytes. So this is the amount of data that is being archived and the number of pages that are being crawled. And most of it, by the way, so most of the LLMs are using only the common crawler data, but as you can see, about 64% of the data is taken by the LLM from the common crawler. Significant amount of data, and this data is big, but at the same time, it's very much biased, right? So therefore, it can be another challenge that we'll have to more challenge. Globally, if you take certain countries have more coverage and compared to others, you can see a few dominant ones are here in terms of the library deployment. And this is again coming from the open access dashboard I mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation. So, and therefore that's also another challenge. Like, how do we come out of it? Obviously by doing more work and contributing to this knowledge base. And geographically, that is also a challenge. If you take legally, generating all this doesn't mean now that we don't have the copyright challenges or the copyright idea. So it still we have, and there are even articles coming from the European Union directives and various others in the context of AI and text, how this can be handled. So those are other angles that we'll have to also look at when you want to institutionalize and make the institutions like libraries to take responsibility of integrating AI in its day-to-day activities. So because libraries has to worry about things like copyrights, obviously. So legally, libraries has to look at before we start implementing the solution, this also has to be done. They have to get legal advice. And also obviously like the type things that we are doing here, discuss and bring this into discussion and policy points. Obviously, privacy is the baseline, right? So we'll have to make sure the privacy is maintained of even things like GDPR is in action. And now other entities, economies around the world are coming up with their own, if not apply GDPR. And also, obviously, if any entity want to work with the European area, Commission, European Union countries, they'll have to follow the GDPR guidelines. So it should be the privacy should be low. So we should have to have fairness, transparency, use the data that is collected only for limited use for the purpose that is intended it for, not for anything else, and minimizing the amount of data that is shared. These are all important while we are implementing and working on integrating AI into it. So, but then it's not so hard for us because there are already guidelines that are set. So the data protection supervisors guideline is there, and countries are coming up with a lot of guidelines, including us, like where I'm coming from. We have set up the national guidelines and also a data protection authority for protecting personal data. And we have the libraries has to be aware and follow these guidelines so that we don't pass boundaries, and also we be more governance and privacy and user oriented and data provider oriented, in addition to providing the best service possible. But so it's possible to bring this into governance and put them in a responsible use. I have put a governance stack here, starting from data sheets and various other standards, and the NIST has its generative AI profile and also risk management framework. These things are all coming to place, and it's possible for us to rely on those documents because people have put hundreds and thousands of hours to think about and prepare these documents. So we can follow them when we are setting up something similar in our context. So, but at the same time, when you want to deal with vendors to buy resources, like say, for example, if you want to automate a certain part, even the retrieval, if you want to automate it, we'll obviously have to go and get them from somebody, buy them from somebody. While we are doing it, we should also now move our procurement from the usual set. We had to add more item to the procurement. So technical documentation, how the data will be handled, where the data will be kept, because we are going to include a new tool into the system of a library. We'll have to make sure the provider gives us guarantee on certain items on the data, whether we are following various other governance related items. So procurement is also has to be updated in libraries when we want to use and utilize the resources that are becoming available for users. Right, so there are again guidelines, like I told you, so it's not so difficult to we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have a number of things we can do. So just to give you an idea on what to look for, we'll have to make sure the precision and recall or the retrieval quality is maintained. Groundedness, meaning like there is always evidence, supported evidence. References, we had to have the lowest possible hallucination rate, if possible 0. Right, so like I told you, publicly available resources now, AI tools provide the hallucination rate is about 2 to 5%. So when we build things into library trusted system, it has to be much lower, ideally 0. Right, so that has to be considered when you want to implement tools, and we'll have to ask for these items from the vendors with whom we are going to bring those solutions. Obviously, user satisfaction, how much time we are saving, how do we go from an AI supported system to a human review. So these are all had to be considered when you want to bring in AI solutions integrated into the workflow that I mentioned earlier. So there are also different matrices we can look for. One is known as this faithfulness metric. What it says is, you can see the equation. It's a very simple one: supported claims and total claims. If the supported claim versus total claim is 100% or 1, then we know that every document is trusted. Therefore, it's faithful system, and anything lower is not so good. So this is something. How do we bring the faithfulness into the equation? Is by using, like I said, RAG type system, meaning every resource that is produced is going to be based on a trusted pool of resources, not from the billions of data that pages and documents that are out there in the internet that the common crawlers told. For example, something that somebody wrote and put it in a blog post or some social media post and social media items and things like that has to be excluded, and only the trusted item has to be included. That's how we can bring the faithfulness index or the metric to 1. That's something that we have to worry about. There are other matrices that we can worry about. Things like there is a ranking metric which talks about how we can bring the more relevant item by contextually including the search or semantic based search and whatnot to bring the rank high. And also whenever we are providing results, how we can rank the results. So not anymore. Now, whenever we are providing results, we'll also have to say, okay, how much trusted this result is, how we can rank them, whether the result is coming from our RAG or whether the result is coming from somewhere else. So those are things that we can consider. I mean, the vendors are working on providing such solutions, but we will have to look for them when we are deploying. So what libraries can pilot first, what they can start first. If you are not already started, the places where we can start first are obviously discovery assistant. So this is a RAG-based system for users for discovery, enriching metadata, and even for referencing, we can use chatbots. And also obviously for staff knowledge assistance. So this is for staff, for them, for internal policies, procedures. This is very easy to do now. Like we can put all the dump in all the resources that are out there in the institutional management type document, policies, procedures, and put them there and make a assistant that can only work, take this document as the RAG, the responsible documents and then provide assistance based on that. So the same can be done for discovery at a higher user level as well. So these are places where we can start. So if you take in short, in 3 months, it's possible to set up something like this, but this is just a pilot, right? So then if you want to take it forward and make sure it runs, it takes longer. So you can define what is needed and build it or get it from a vendor and test it. And then we had to come up with the governance structure and take it forward from there. In the interest of time, I'll not go into all the detail, but like someone was asking, I'll share the link of the slide so that you can refer to them in more detail when you find time. So responsibility, I don't want to re-emphasize it, but it is something of importance. Every other document, GDPR, European Union AI Act, NIST from the Europe, also from the US, and ISO, the standards, and everywhere else, it all talks about human review, transparent citations. We had to make sure its uncertainty is handled, meaning it's all certain, the results that are coming. We also had to worry about privacy and copyright checks. So I already mentioned those. And procurement, we'll have to make sure now the procurement of tools and systems that we buy for library use has to have additional items, things like proper documentation, auditability, and how the vendors will update, where are they keeping the data, whether they are keeping that in, how are they managing the privacy of the data, and so on has to be properly aligned so that we can go forward. So just to finish and give some time for everyone to ask questions and have a short discussion, I'll finish with my final takeaways. So what AI system can do, it can improve discovery and precision and recall. So it can improve all this in our day-to-day activity or day-to-day service that we provide to our users. It can improve frontline and reference services. It can improve repetitive work, so meaning like it can be given to the tools, and also it can improve scaling the metadata and resource sharing operations. I gave examples of all of this, but while improving and making all of this better, faster, the more important item I would say is the libraries should still protect items like credibility. That's something that only libraries can provide, traditionally have been providing. And it has to continue providing. So the libraries have to continue providing credibility, and it has to continue providing fairness and legal aspects like copyright and so on, and also accountability, making sure what AI does is something that is people can take responsibility. The library institution can take responsibility of what AI provides. That's so important. So although it can, the AI can come and do all sort of fancy things, but the trust and the libraries has been doing the protection of all this in a credible, fair, legal, accountable way has to still continue, and it has to continue more now than earlier. Right. So that's my final thoughts. And just to finish, I'll finish with this quote I just put up for this presentation. Libraries should not watch AI happens to them. They should shape how they use AI, right? So I'm sure all of you will take that responsibility, and thank you very much for joining, and thank you for giving me this opportunity and share some ideas with you. I'm happy to take some questions.
All right. Does anyone have any questions at the moment? Because I do not see any in the chat yet. Okay, so that's one. So there's one question in the chat. Many researchers are writing research manuscripts with AI tools. How to take these challenges as librarians?
Okay, so that's a very good question, first of all. And I think, yes, researchers are using AI tools for writing. So from researchers' point of view, they'll have to deal with publishers to publish them. So right now what's happening is the publishers are putting guidelines. Publishers are putting guidelines on how AI use could be to publish anything with them. Popular publishers, Springer, Elsevier, and whatnot. right? So all of them are now including guidelines. If you go and look at those guidelines, they say, okay, authors, you are using AI. Okay, these things you can use AI, these things you should not use AI. If you are using AI, this is how you will be using it. These parts you should not use it. And how do we, when you are using AI, how do we bring evidence? How do we bring responsibility? How do we bring accountability? These are things that are already included into such guidelines. So as libraries, I think you will obviously have to work with the publishers, and you are working with publishers. So the responsibility right now is taken by the publishers, and libraries can also, for items that the libraries collect. I know, like if you take research institutions and universities, libraries collect items from their sub item, like faculties and researchers. They collect items which are not published by a publisher but keep or indexed by the library. In such situation, I would recommend you also go and look at such guidelines. Look at guidelines where publishers have already come up with guidelines on how they can make sure AI is used in a positive way while taking responsibility and accountability. So that's how you can go about it. So there is one more question. Maybe I can read, or Anna, you want to read?
Yes, you can. Yeah, but because there's one comment and then after the question. Plagiarism tools are catching AI generated tests with a percentage of 40 to 50% is too high. So do you have a response to this?
So I mean, personally, being an AI researcher as well, I don't trust these AI tools, to be honest. I mean, AI detection, plagiarism tools. The point is, like it's a race. I hope you understand that, right? So the AI tools, we are building AI tools, not the plagiarism detectors, but the AI tools. We are building the AI tools such that they become as close as personalized, as close as human-like, right? At the same time, we are also building tools, plagiarism detectors that detect AI use, right? So it's a race, a healthy race, I would say, because then things advance. The healthy race, the problem is AI detectors are not going to be useful very soon because the AI generators are going to take over. They have already done so. So therefore, the AI plagiarism detector tools are not so helpful. One side, and also plagiarism detection tools, there are a number of research that are done to show such tools are very much biased, right? So I can give you examples. You can go and look at literature. There is work that are done to show plagiarism detection tools, for instance, are biased towards native speakers, for instance, right? So when my students write articles, even if they write it, the plagiarism detection tool says this is AI. Why so is because the tools are trained on native English writers, right? So that's just an example. So therefore, plagiarism detector tools are not so useful. But how do we come out of it is we'll have to, like, in fact, like publishers, like I said again, I would suggest to whoever is asking this question or the comment to go and look at what the publishers are saying. So we might have to go beyond just writing to see what is expected to be published. If a AI tool can generate some content in a nicer way, but we provide the content, we provide the ideas, we provide the resources, we provide the results, we provide what we did to the tool, I think that is okay. That's where we are heading towards. We are heading toward a place where the resources and the information and the work and are provided by users, and the tools can generate them or put them in a nicer form and an easier readable form. So that's where we are heading, I believe. Sorry for that's a long answer.
Yes, okay.
Anna?
That's very detailed. So we do have other questions as well. So maybe we can try to tackle them one by one within a few minutes. And
Yeah.
I think the next
Yeah.
one is just about moving the slides back to the roadmap so we can still look at that. So if Professor, if you don't mind, can you move the slides backward to the roadmap one?
Roadmap, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so that, and I hope that is just about looking at the slide. So the next one is in the Q&A section. If AI content is cited in a paper, can it be considered valid, I guess, because I think that this question is a little bit incomplete. So if AI content is cited in a paper, can it be considered valid or something? And the second question, oh, sorry, you can, yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, maybe we can go one by one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So AI content, if AI generated content is, I mean, the idea of citation is more than just the content. I mean, more than just the writing, right? So AI only generate content based on some resource. So what has to be cited is the resource, right? So in a research context, what has to be cited is obviously things that are published, not just what is generated. So what I was talking about is how AI can generate content that is based on evidence. So what we have to cite is the evidence, but we can say, okay, this is generated by AI, which is not really citation. It is just to say, okay, it is polished and it's put together by AI. But the reference has to come from the citation. I mean the proper published research.
Okay, so yes, that's a follow-up question actually. So can a whole research paper be made into an AI video to market or advertise said paper? So how would you respond to this?
So can whole research paper make AI video and market? Yeah, that's being done already. I mean, the way how you share a paper and resources and also the information that you have collected and so on, it's up to you. I think now AI tools are doing good and therefore it's possible. The only thing is what I would strongly recommend is when AI tools generate such video, make sure you check it thoroughly, review it properly before you release it. Make sure it's human checked or human in the loop, we call it. So with that, I think it's possible to go forward, yes.
And so there one more question in the chat. How would you suggest we shape how it is used with our limited resources? The drive is for off-the-shelf tools, so our ability to influence is limited.
Yeah, so the question is about our limited resources. So it's now possible to build these tools with, like I said, yes, it needs resources. We cannot do without resources at all, but it's possible to do with low resources, right? So there are ways in which you can do at least certain items with limited resources, like things that I have mentioned here. So it's possible to do it with limited resources because even the service providers, like the item I mentioned, the RAG system, let's say, for example, you have the resources, let's say you want resources in a library, and what you need is from a tool to just interpret the results and give you the answer, which are not so expensive. It's possible to do such things. If you're going to completely build a system where you don't want to share your information out, you want to keep it inside, you don't want a third party to access it, then it's very expensive. So there are countries, economies who are building such system, but such systems are expensive. But it's possible to build cheaper, low resource systems that are very useful. The items I discussed are coming in the second category. Anna?
So hi, there's one more questions. It's more, I think it's more specific to Sri Lanka. So how libraries in Sri Lanka are prepared to use AI?
Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to answer that. Maybe I have to ask a librarian from Sri Lanka to answer that question. I'm promoting, I'm helping, I'm trying, but yeah, maybe Sri Lankan librarians.
I think it is, I mean, the AI is quite, we haven't gone very far in that area. So what I feel is now, as you said, the normal search techniques, whatever the search techniques we use now to narrow down the search results, there will be a lot. So we need to transform into AI and how to use AI in a responsible manner, as you said. And what I want to say is now, say a researcher might get some results, say 50 articles for his literature search for, and he'll manipulate it according to his requirement, and then he'll use it for his research. But but AI comes as a package. So do you think that the packages are like set up to supply information for the individual research requirements. So that's what I
Yeah, so generic, in fact, okay, you're asking a question. So generic, yes, I mean, generic tools, like you said, they are packaged, but then it's possible to build specific tools. Like, so yeah, these are already happening. So even libraries now can look for such tools. That is what I was highlighting earlier. You have to work with vendors to look for specific tool that support specific things. So they are, I shared a study with where like 36 libraries has done it. What they have done is not generic tools. They are specifically built for customized tools for them. It's possible.
Okay, so we have one more comment in the chat. So in academics, AI generated text is not a good practice. We, the librarians, have to advocate on responsible use of these tools in academics. So that's also actually it touches on something you mentioned in the presentation already. I do absolutely agree. And I mean, my opinion is that we can write as much as we can. It's from my personal experience in writing my thesis. So my thesis currently is over 700 pages, and Word really stops updating. Just doing spell checks and grammar checks, and sometimes when we type too fast, typos happen. And once Word stops doing that, I prop one page to that to try to find what should be corrected. And I think this kind of use can be considered as responsible because it's still my own content. I am just using a tool to help me do something that Word just decided to stop doing. So but I really do agree the work should be original and the text can be like refined a bit, but it still has to be someone's original work. So and I think we have only just one more question in the chat and we should close the webinar. So one more question is, what are the common AI tools used in libraries?
So right now the libraries are supporting researchers tools. So there are a number of research tools, but those are common and they are connected to research archives. I just mentioned a couple of them earlier. There is one called Connected Paper. They are all commercial tools and therefore I'm just mentioning them. There is another one called Research Rabbit. Those are, and there's many other. There is Consensus. There is even like commercial tools like ChatGPT has a number of sub tools within it, which can be used for things like evidence-based or semantic retrieval and so on. So those are again generic tools, but then there are specific companies who are building tools which can be deployed within a library and using your resources, your digital resources. For example, if you have research theses of your PG students or PG graduates, and that can be connected to the research, the tool, and they are specifically built. It can be built for you. They are not generic tools. Yeah, there's some list that are coming up.
Yes. Thank you for giving some examples in the chat. And so, as I mentioned before, this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel, and an email will be sent to all registrants and participants, so you won't miss anything. But please allow us some time to do that. So, and the summary will also be published afterwards. However, it takes a lot of work to do that, and so please be patient. Meanwhile, please send us emails or send us some messages in our LinkedIn group or Facebook group or by email, so we can address your questions before the webinar is the recording of the webinar is ready. So thank you so much, and I just want to let you all know that these are the places you can find the Science and Technology Library section. And so that will be all for now.
And I just one point. So someone asked for the link of my presentation. I have shared it.
Okay, so the link is in the chat now. So with that, I will give you some more like a dozen of seconds to get the link, and you can access it right now. And with that, I would like to, just the last page. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar, and thank you, Professor Ragel, for giving us such a detailed presentation. I have some ideas, but I didn't expect it to be so detailed and it's very, very insightful. Thank you so much. And the SciTech section will have more webinars in the future and will be announced through our communications channels that I mentioned earlier. And please stay tuned. We will be back for more webinars. Thank you.